Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart. My name is Barb Langle, and I participate in the life of the church by serving on the board of trustees, among other things. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles. Both can be found online at uua.org. Together, we strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. I just have a couple announcements. Sandy wanted me to thank Jerry, Roz, and Jeff for helping her sort out the books. And I would like to say how beautiful our flower box is outside, thanks to Tracy. When Pastor Tom cannot be in the pulpit, we invite a guest or a member of our congregation to speak. Today we have, hopefully, Elizabeth Menning, who is the president of PFLAG, and the PFLAG is an organization dedicated to support, educate, and advocate for LGBTQ. I don't see her yet, but we also have our own John and Ruth Halstead. We are currently streaming our services online. The joys and sorrow portion of our services, however, is private, and we will take a break from streaming during that time. Other than that, the service will be recorded and will be available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Wearing a mask is optional right now, but if you are ill or you think you have had contact with anyone who has COVID, please attend virtually. Now please let your Facebook and Twitter friends know that you are attending worship with hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. And please silence your devices and take a deep breath and another, and join us in the spirit of reverence.
If you would. If you would join me with lighting the chalice. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of a life we share together.
Our opening words this morning come from the First Unitarian Church of Ottawa congregant Brian Killey. We are each born into this world who we are, tall or short, with our own color of skin, with our own sexual orientation. How can anyone ever tell us we are anything less than beautiful? Anything less than whole? Please stand for the opening hymn if you are able, number 146, Soon the Day Will Arrive.
And now for our And now for our affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. This is its prayer, and this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We are striving to create a worship space which is both spiritual and safe. However, we recognize that not everyone can attend in person. We extend a special welcome to everyone who is joining us virtually today, and thank you to our tech team for making that possible. For those who are not present in the sanctuary, please take a moment, and who are present in the sanctuary, please take a moment to greet your neighbor by waving your hands and letting the smile The warmth of your smile fill the space between us.
This congregation expresses our greatest joys and sorrows in community. We believe that a joy shared is magnified and a shared sorrow is diminished. We pause listening to what arises from within our hearts. Your joys and sorrows will not be streamed online, nor will they be part of the recording which is made public. Due to COVID, we will not be passing the microphone. Please speak loudly when you share your joys and sorrows. If anyone cannot hear the speaker, please raise your hand and I will paraphrase. We are welcoming your joys and concerns at this time. our hearts, including those too tender to be shared aloud.
Thank you, Patricia. And now for the story in each of us. Are you a boy or are you a girl? By Sarah Savage and Fox Fisher. My name is Tiny, and this is my family. We have just moved to a new town because Dad has a new job as a bus driver. We have a beautiful new house, and I will be going to a new school. This is my bedroom to our new house. Dad has built me a special bed that looks like a castle. It's so big that I can keep all of my toys underneath and still have space to play with my little sister Fiona. Next to my bed are my fancy dress and toy boxes. Dressing up is my favorite thing to do. Fiona and I love to pretend we are animals or doctors or even to host our own talent show. Tiny asked Fiona, "Are you a boy or are you a girl today?" Mom lets us dress up whenever we want. Today we are going to the park. My sister is a cowboy and I'm dressed as a butterfly. When we get home, Dad is back from work and is cooking dinner. We are having spaghetti, my favorite. It's my favorite too. Mom and I are getting my bag and clothes ready for the first day at school. I hope I make some friends. Super Tiny, look, I've washed your favorite top for school tomorrow, Mom says. The school is much bigger than the last one, but the teacher is very friendly and shows me where to sit. The teacher tells the whole class it's Tiny's first day here, so please be nice. A boy shouts, "Tiny, what a silly name. I can't tell if you're a girl or a boy." My new teacher says, "Buster, that's rude. Why does it matter if they are a boy or a girl?" This morning is special because some firefighters are coming to speak to us about fire safety. "Girls can't be firefighters," Mia said. But look, there is a lady driving the fire engine." Later on, when we play football, my favorite, Buster kicks the ball away and says, "Girls can't play footballs, it's for boys only." Mia says, "I don't think it matters who plays, as long as we are all having fun." Back in class, I draw a picture of Mia and Charlie for the school art show. Buster spills my paint and laughs. Tiny is not a he, Tiny is not a she, Tiny is an it. The teacher says, "Buster, don't be a bully. Why does it matter if Tiny is a girl or a boy?" Norse, say sorry and help Tiny tidy up. "Sorry," says Buster. "That's okay." Tiny says, "What does it mean to be a boy or a girl?" "I like eating cakes, playing football, dressing up, and watching the stars." "Oh, me too," says Buster. After school, Charlie and Mia come over to my house to play with me and my new neighbor, Alfie. We play in my bedroom, creating to be wild creatures. Charlie is a crocodile. Mia is a tiger. Alfie is a fish, and I am an owl. We are tidying up to get ready for dinner. Alfie asks me, "Tiny, are you a boy or are you a girl?" I am me. How are girls and boys different? Do you think that Tiny is a boy or a girl? Does it matter if Tiny is a boy or a girl? Should Tiny be allowed to play football and dress up as a fairy? What would you ask Tiny if you met him or her? Would you like to play with Tiny? Thank you. And now for our hymn, number 318, We Would Be One. Well, I don't see anybody I haven't seen before. So it seems like Elizabeth couldn't make it, and I was really looking forward to hearing from her. When I talked to her on the phone, we had a great conversation. I'm so sorry. But we do have Ruth and John. I don't know who's coming first, but
So good morning. So I want to start with a disclaimer. I want to acknowledge that as a cisgendered heterosexual male, speaking here on Coming Out Week, I am taking a space that might be filled by an LGBT person. I can't speak, and I don't intend to try to speak for LGBT experience, but I do hope that Ruth and my experience as parents of bisexual children will be beneficial and maybe in some small way help contribute to making the world a safer and better place for lesbian, gay, bi, transgendered, queer, intersex, and asexual and questioning people. So, as most of you know, Ruth and I have two children, Katya, who's here today, and William. William's 23 now, and Katya's 20. Katya came out to us several years ago when she was in high school, I think as a freshman, as bisexual. William came out to us much later. In fact, it was just about a year ago when he was 22, and by telling us he was dating a man. That was our first even inkling that William might be gay or bisexual. He told us he's attracted to both men and women, and he's now dating a non-binary person, which in a way throws the whole hetero, homo, binary out the window for me. I was very glad that William felt like he could come out to us and felt safe doing so. And in fact, he kind of did it matter-of-factly. It was just, this is who I'm dating now. And I'm like, okay. But I did wonder why he hadn't come out to us sooner, or if he hadn't maybe felt safe with us to do so. And he's assured us, and me repeatedly actually, because I keep asking, that he did feel safe with us. He just wasn't ready to come out. And nonetheless, this question got me thinking about what I might have done, even if it didn't contribute to his reluctance to come out, what I might have done in raising him that might have caused him any kind of pause or any kind of reluctance to come out to us when he was younger. If someone had asked, I would have said emphatically that we were LGBT affirming parents, but I think in many ways my thoughts and words, especially back then and even now still to some degree, are heteronormative, meaning I tend to assume my own experience as a heterosexual and cisgendered as the norm, and I tend to think and talk about homosexual and trans experience as a variation from that norm, right? For example, how many times did I ask William if there were any girls he liked? Well, I really never asked him if there were any boys he might like. How many times did I talk to him about, the future where he would marry a woman, and always assuming that he would be in a heterosexual relationship? And that assumption is all the more remarkable because at the same time I was talking to William, I was talking to Katya, who had come out, and who I always made a point of saying, well, are there any girls you like too? But with William, I never asked. As I thought about this, I wondered if my being nominally pro-LGBT was more political than personal. It's relatively easy for me to represent myself as LGBT affirming as it is to adopt any progressive perspective from the constellation of progressive viewpoints like gun control or universal health care. But what had I really done to root out my own deep-rooted homophobia and interrogate my heteronormative habits of thought and speech? And was there a reason why my daughter could come out to us earlier than my son? Something specifically to do with a specifically masculine form of homophobia, something to do with how homophobia and toxic masculinity are all wound up together. And maybe I had communicated this to my son inadvertently in some ways. When I was in high school in the early 1990s in southern Indiana, Ryan White was in the news. And if you don't remember, Ryan was a teenager who had been diagnosed with AIDS, which he had received from a blood transfusion. And because of his infection, he could not find a high school in Indiana that would accept him to go to school. For most of the heterosexual people that I knew at that time, at least, AIDS and homosexuality were inextricably intertwined. Because Ryan was infected with AIDS, people talked about him as if he were gay, even though he had gotten AIDS from a blood transfusion. And of course, everyone who was openly gay or even suspected of being gay was suspected of being infected with AIDS. And worse than that, if there could be something worse than that, on top of that, homosexuality itself was treated like a contagion, a moral one which could infect people by contact or even proximity. At least that's the way we talked about it in high school. Back then, people routinely said horrible things, openly and unapologetically. I'm thinking about the fact that I I've wiped this from my own memory conveniently, but I'm pretty sure I probably said horrible things openly and unapologetically too. So as a boy, I was much as you see me today. I was thin, unathletic, fastidious, fashionable, at least I think so, and a little flamboyant. And while I was cisgendered and heterosexual, I did not conform to some of the cultural ideals about how boys and men were supposed to be. In a culture of toxic masculinity, especially then, but even now, maleness and being a man is not something that can ever be taken for granted. It's something that has to be achieved, and it has to be proven regularly and publicly. And I failed at that a lot, or at least that was the message that I got. At that time, being called gay and other uglier terms was normal for boys who failed to demonstrate the requisite degree of masculinity. I spent most of my developmental years terrified that somebody would call me gay, and fearful of the implied threat of physical violence that entailed. And while I was only attracted to women and I had no negative feelings about the few gay people I knew, I was ashamed of the parts of me that made me vulnerable to being called gay. And I carried that shame with me into my adulthood, even while I later advocated for LGBT rights publicly. Exercising that internalized homophobia has taken decades, and I'm still working on it to some degree. An important moment in that process for me happened several years ago with this church. We were participating as a congregation in the Hobart 4th of July parade, and at the front of our train was a Side with Love pro-LGBT banner. At that time, David Bart was a gay man who was a member of our congregation before he'd moved away, and he had picked up one end of the banner before the parade started. For those of you who didn't know David, he is a very expressive person in general and was open about being gay. I saw David pick up the banner, and one side of the banner, and stand there, one side in his hands and the other side on the ground, looking around for someone to hold the other side for him. I'm sure it was just a few seconds, but it was a poignant image for me. I'm sure someone else from the congregation, gay or straight, would have picked up the banner quickly enough. But I was closest to it, and I saw it, and I saw the hopeful look on David's face, and I picked up the other side of the banner. I immediately felt acutely self-conscious. I felt like I was back in high school again, irrationally afraid that someone would think I was gay. Not that I had any problem with David being gay, I just didn't want anybody to think I was. Where was that coming from? I thought I'd gotten over those feelings. I was supposed to be a pro-LGBT progressive activist, for God's sake, and I was wrestling with these feelings still. But while I was still going through this, the parade started, and David and I carried the banner forward. David was his usual exuberant self. He was proudly smiling and waving, and I was doing my best I don't give a fuck impression. But I did a lot. And as we walked, I continued wrestling with these feelings which had arisen from somewhere in me, and I thought they were gone, or at least I tried really hard to ignore them for a while. And I watched David, an out gay man, so obviously happy and proud to be at the front of our church, the front of our march, carrying a pro-LGBT banner, backed up literally and metaphorically, physically and spiritually by our congregation. I watched him confront a mixture of responses from the Hobart crowd with courage and positivity. His beaming smile broke through my self-doubt and my feelings of shame. I thought about what he was risking just being there and what he must have risked throughout his life and how little I was really risking or had ever risked in my life. Thinking back on that, I realize now that my son's life as a younger gay man is better, safer, and happier today because of men like David Bart. I realize that my own life as a heterosexual man is also better because of men like David Bart and because of men like my son now. Because of their courage and that of so many others like them, the forces of homophobia and toxic masculinity are pushed back. Every time a gay boy comes out to his parents, somewhere a repressed heterosexual man puts on a pair of fairy wings and joins a tea party with his daughter. Every time a gay couple kisses in public, two heterosexual men feel a little freer to compliment each other on the way they look, or even, gasp, hug each other. Because of David and because of my son and because of my daughter, I feel freer to be myself. Because of them, I feel less apologetic about the kind of man and the kind of person that I am. When Barb asked us to talk today on Coming Out Week, I thought this talk would be about how I've supported my son and daughter in coming out and what a great parent I am for being supportive. But what I really want to share with you today is how proud I am of William and Katya, but also how grateful I am to them and to those of you who are openly LGBT and so many others like you. I know you're not out for my sake, but my life and my children's lives, and I really think all of our lives are better because of who you are, because you're willing to share yourselves with the rest of us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hello. John dug deep there. I'm so proud of that talk that you gave. Thank you. So I titled my talk, "A Mother's Feelings About Her Children's Sexuality." And there's a lot of mixed feelings, strangely. But let me just start with, I want nothing more than to see my children love and be loved. And of course, I want them to be safe, healthy, happy too. Still, being loved seems to help with all of that. And loving yourself in between relationships helps as well. I used to think that my greatest parenting goal was to have my children be good members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormon. And that would take care of their happiness in this life and the next. And there's a lot asked of members to be good Mormons. I won't go into that. But I have a new prayer now. Just let my children be safe, healthy, happy, and most importantly, loved. Going back in time when I was in Mormonism, I did not agree with the churches actively getting in the way of anyone legally marrying who they wanted. Yet at the same time, I did not think about how I would feel if my children were gay. I already knew discrimination was wrong. We went to pride parades as a family to show support. So it was refreshing when John found this church, where loving who you wanted was not an issue. I was pleased and proud to put my daughter and son and our whole lives OWL sex education that this UU church offers. And even as a sex therapist, of course, my kids still did not want to talk to me about sex. I mean, what kid would, right? Like, how embarrassing. So having a sex-positive, comprehensive education on sexuality that matched their stage of development was perfect. I'm so happy OWL exists, and my husband John found this for our children. My daughter started crushing on girls and boys in elementary school, and I think we really believed she was bisexual between middle school and high school when her first major crush was on a girl. And as she talked about this girl, I consciously said what I would have said no matter what gender her crush was. But still, I had to admit I was secretly concerned. For example, I was concerned that I would not be able to relate to my daughter if she ended up, marrying a woman and not a man. I was all ready to give her life lessons on being independent and not depending on a man, and the lessons on how to stay safe from STIs and domestic violence. And I was all reared up and ready to go to talk to her about this. And of course, that shows my bias, right? Because there's obviously abuse happens in any romantic relationship, no matter the gender. But also I was concerned that Katya might not have the opportunity to get pregnant. Another experience I would not share with her. So Katya never did date a female that I know of, but she did date boys, and I have to admit, I was relieved. Not because I was against homosexuality, but because I could relate to her more. William had crushes on girls since preschool. He was a romantic even then, would write poems. And so he had a girlfriend in high school as well. And then in college and during his first year and a half of the pandemic, he was really lonely and sad. Excuse me. He moved to Florida with his grandpa in 2021. And 2 days after he left, he told us he was dating on dating sites. I was so happy for him taking this brave step. That's a vulnerable step, joining a dating site. I've never done it. I thank goodness never had to, but it must be hard. A month or so later, William told us on FaceTime call that he was dating someone more exclusively. His name was Aldo. And John and I looked at each other and mouthed, Aldo? And we continued on with the call and sharing our joy and hearing that he was happy, and it was good to see his genuine smile again. The call was casual. And when the call ended, John and I were silent, and then we looked at each other and asked, did you know? And we honestly could say that we did not. William had told me once before that if he dated a man, that he would be attracted to a feminine man. And I really did not think much of it other than he's attracted to the feminine. But after that FaceTime call, a flood of love and pride came over me. My son is gay. And I was just so happy for him that he could own his sexuality and own it so casually. You know, no drama, not even really a coming out. Just simply sharing information about the person he was dating. And I know this sounds weird, but in a way I felt robbed of the dramatic way that we could have sat down in person and him say, Mom and Dad, I have something to share with you. And then he would say, I'm gay. And we would be put our arms around him and we would just share, we love you no matter what. And dry any tears of shame he might have been having. But William had no shame. He had no embarrassment, no story of oppression or discrimination. No internal struggle that I knew of or that I could see. He was just giddy happy to find someone to love and share that with us. That's the way it should be. But next, and all these feelings came up, 1 second after another within probably a minute. But next, I felt for his safety. He was in a relationship with a man. Now, all the concerns and lessons that I would have shared with Katya came flooding back to me for William. I wanted to talk to him about safe sex, about domestic violence. And I loved this Aldo already for the genuine smile he brought back to my son. And I also felt I needed to threaten this guy that if he ever lied and if he ever hurt my boy, that I would chase him down. And I would. Very protective. Another fear for his safety came to my mind. I feared that he might blissfully be in public holding hands with Aldo, and then some ignorant fool would take their affection as a personal offense, and William's life might be in danger. I started to see the world with new eyes. I knew this world was unsafe emotionally and physically for gay people. But it is not about people anymore. It's about my son. I was angry and scared and helpless in a whole new way as a parent. I did not want to put my anxiety on William, though. I do believe that we live in a safer world than in the 80s when I grew up. And William is safer already, not having his own shame attached to his sexuality. I have confidence that if anyone said anything ignorant to Katya or William about their bisexuality, then my kids would not internalize it. And I in part credit John and me in this church. It is a protective factor against suicide, having a non-shaming church and family community. The statistics will show that. The rest of the credit goes to my amazing kids. William is now in a healthy relationship with his non-binary friend, Riel. Riel was assigned female at birth, but does not identify as female or male. I had to ask what pronouns Riel prefers. Riel said they, them, and their. And I had to ask what to call Riel in relationship to William. It's not a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that's too binary. Riel educated me on calling them William's non-binary friend. I had never even heard that term before. I have to admit, it does not flow easily off my tongue, but I am okay with working on correctly identifying Riel so that it will flow off my tongue more easily every time I work at it. I want to shout to the world that I am a proud mother of a gay bisexual son. I wanted to be someone that helps break the shame cycle in this world and make it a safer place. But I did not have William's permission. So for about a year, I sat with this news, and it sat in me like a bubbling energy with no place to go. And I realized that parents of gay and queer children have their own coming out story. I felt William deprived me of coming out. Coming out as a proud parent. But a few months ago, he gave me permission. I told my family, some still Mormon, and I announced his dating here during Joys and Sorrows. And I was met all around with supportive love. It was such a relief. I chose not to post on Facebook or tell my LDS church family, except a few close friends. But I get to come out in the ways that I feel most safe to. Katya is now in a healthy relationship with her cisgendered boyfriend, Justin. They are here today, and you will admit they are so cute together. And William and Riel are going to move in together soon. It's their big news announcement recently. I have never been happier for my daughter and my son, because all I've ever wanted for them was to love and be loved, and that is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Ruth. That was really wonderful. Now is the time in our service for our offering. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and friendship. We give with the faith that together we have enough. The money in the baskets goes to sustaining the mission of our community. The money in the cups goes to our Faith in Action ministry and a different charity chosen by the ministry every month. This month, the money from the cups goes to the Family Giving Project. For those not with us here today, there's an online link on the screen for both one-time and regular donations. And I need 4 volunteers, of which I have 2, I think.
Just a reminder, the Family Giving Project this year
for your prayers, your presence, your service, and your gifts. We are truly grateful. And for the closing hymn, we have, I think it is 118, This Little Light of Mine. Is that- Our closing words for this morning come from an essay for Faith on View Daily by Julie Nichols, a Catholic pediatrician therapist. When one parent fully supports their LGBTQ children, the suicide rate drops dramatically. The suicide rate in LGBTQ youth from conservative religious families and churches is twice as high as it is for those from non-religious, more progressive religious homes and churches.
If you would, join me in extinguishing the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We have wonderful homemade chicken soup today, kids, and banana bread.